Hey everyone, it's Epoch here, and welcome to my entry to this week's comic book cover challenge set by Alan at Comic Collector Geek. This week's theme is car comic covers, so let's take a look at some comics in my personal collection that feature cars on the cover. Let's take a look. This week we're going to start off with a photo cover that's from Elvira, Mistress of the Dark #2. This is cover D. I think all the photo covers were cover D. We have Elvira here sitting on the hood of a kind of a black Cadillac, I think it is. It has like a spooky kind of spider web radiator grille at the front there. I think this is the same car from the Elvira movie from the late 80s. So yeah, number 10 we have Elvira, Mistress of the Dark #2. And at number 9 this week, we have Superman the Man of Steel #2. I just thought this was an interesting one, is when most people think of Superman and cars, they think of Action Comics #1, whereas this is quite different from that. It still has Superman lifting up a car, but it's from a different perspective. It's from head on, and he's sort of rescuing the car from the water below, whereas in Action Comics #1, he's sort of hurtling the car. So yeah, that's Superman the Man of Steel #2. And speaking of Action Comics #1, the number 8 pick this week is Action Comics number 685, which itself is a homage cover to Action Comics #1, except this time we have Supergirl lifting the car up rather than Superman. So just thought that was a wee nice twist with it, having Supergirl there instead of Superman. So that's Action Comics number 685. The next issue this week is Coffin Bound #1 from Image Comics, which was a limited series put out by them a few years ago. And the reason it's quite low on the list is the car doesn't really feature prominently on the cover, but we do have the main character there looking cool and sexy leaned up against it. And the series itself does follow on her car journey. She tries to eradicate all traces of her existence. So that's Coffin Bound #1. The number 6 pick this week is New X-Men number 131, which I thought was quite an interesting cover. You don't really get to see the full car here. It's sort of a section of the limousine where you have Emma Frost looking sexy there coming out of the car. This is a cover by Ethan Van Sciver. What's interesting about this is when he drew this on the boards, it was the other way around, but Marvel flipped it for the cover. And also as well, they blacked out the sort of the back of the limousine here, but originally there was a kind of party girl drawn there. But what's interesting is they blacked her out, but you can still see her leg just there, so I thought that was kind of fun. But yeah, this one's a bit lower just because you only see a section of the car, but still a really cool Emma Frost cover. So that's New X-Men number 131. And at number 5 this week, we have Domino #3, which I thought was just a fun cover. You have the three girls there in the car with the top down, speeding away with the bags of cash there and the money just floating everywhere, looking like they're having the times of their lives. So that's Domino #3. The number 4 spot this week goes to Captain Scarlet and Mr. Ron's #3, which is a British comic from here in the UK. These comics were produced in the early 90s when the Jerry Anderson Super Mario Nation shows were having somewhat of a revival on British television at the time. So these new comics were produced. The contents of the comics, the comic strips that are in them, are actually, I think, just reprints of the 1960s Captain Scarlet strips from the TV21 comic that was available at the time here in the UK. But all the covers for this series were brand new. So this cover here features many of the vehicles from Captain Scarlet. We have the Spectrum helicopter, the maximum security vehicle, and the Spectrum patrol car here, which was always one of my favourites, even though most people's favourite is probably the SPV, which isn't featured here. But here we have the Spectrum patrol car and these other vehicles kind of moving away from this explosion, which is really cool. I just kind of dug this out. I found these in a box in my in one of my cupboards. I haven't looked at them in years, so this is one of the better condition ones that I still have. Because I was about 8 at the time they were coming out, so I wasn't really conscious of preserving comics at the time. As you can see, I had a free gift here, which these old comics in the UK were usually just stuck on with sellotape, which wasn't ideal. So I managed to get this off without ripping it at the time when I was a kid. But the badge that came with it I still have somewhere. I think I know what it is. And the other thing with these comics as well, they always had like a insert that shows you a cross section of a vehicle, which I always pulled out and used as posters, but I still have them as well. So although it's not attached, I do have it to add to it. But yeah, so yeah, Captain Scarlet and the Mr. Ron's #3. The #3 spot this week goes to World's Finest number 169. I always thought this was an amusing cover. You have Superman and Batman here in this story where they've sort of lost their strength. So they're struggling here to change the tyre on the Batmobile, and you have the Supergirl and Batgirl here just kind of laughing. So I always thought that was a fun and interesting one. So World's Finest number 169. The number 2 spot this week goes to Gunsmith Cats number 5, which is one of Dark Horse's manga properties where they've been reprinting them as comic issues in the mid 90s. Gunsmith Cats is a fun one. I love the OVA. I have it somewhere in here. But I just thought this was one of the cool covers from that series. I mean, a lot of the covers from the series are cool, but we have them the two police officers there on their car, ready for action. So that's Gunsmith Cats number 5. And my number 1 pick this week goes to Pep Comics number 231. I just always thought this was a fun Archie cover. Here you have Archie taking Veronica on a date in his car to the sort of drive-in burger place, and then you have Betty here as the waitress serving them. I just thought this was a just always really fun one. It kind of it's sort of that image of Americana, you know, from the late 50s and 1960s. And I mean, I'm not American, and nor was I born in the 50s or 60s, but I just thought that was it looks like it was a simpler time. It looks like it was a fun time to be alive. So that's Pep Comics number 231. So those were my picks for this week's comic book cover challenge set by Alan at Comic Collector Geek. The theme, of course, was car covers. So if you want to take part, then please make a video showing off 10 covers from your personal comic book collection that prominently feature cars, and use the hashtag #CarComicCovers in Friday Comic Challenge, so that way everyone in the community can take a look at the comics you have in your collection and see some cool stuff that they may want to pick up for themselves in the future. And if you'd like to check out some of my previous entries into the Comic Book Covers Challenge, then please check out this playlist that is here at the side. And until then, I'll see you next week. Bye.